So, I'm all tangled up here. I've done this before, you know. You know, the truth is I love fishing. I love everything about fishing. I love planning fishing trips. I love catching fish. In fact, about the only thing I like more than fishing at this point in my life is teaching others to fish. But I'm humbled by the fact that in my life there's always somebody who's better at it than I am. I've got friends that they could catch fish anywhere. You'd never go hungry with them. There's all kinds of sayings about fishing too, you know. Like a bad day fishing is better than a good day at work. I hate that saying. I hate that saying for a couple of reasons. First, a bad day fishing sucks. That's not a good time when it's raining and the weather's terrible. No one likes that. It's no fun when you're not catching fish either. Ask a kid, they know better than that. But more importantly, as a Catholic fella who grew up eating fish every Friday, there we had one there. I'm reminded of the fact that for most of us who enjoy eating fish, a whole lot of people have to work really hard to get that fish. In fact, some of them risk their lives for it. It's not you look at the statistics in Canada, what it's like to be a fisherman, that is not a profession for the faint-hearted. It's hard work. It's hard work for everyone to get it there too. So it disrespects the work of others to say that. That's why I'll never say it other than to prove a point. That led us to a conversation about what we think work actually is. Why would we say, what is it about our mindset that too many of us don't like work? Again, as a Catholic fellow, I've often said there's a few things every man in my life knows about me. You should have a favorite psalm, a favorite gospel. You should have a favorite saint. Most of us would probably pick Mary, and you'd think with my love of fishing, an easy pick would be St. Peter, but the fact is, I spent more time with St. Joseph the worker, the carpenter, than any of the saints. He's always been top on my list since I started working 35 years ago. You ask yourself why that is. He's a righteous man. That meant he knew what work was. He knew the value and purpose of work, and more importantly, understood what work was as a Jew, as an Israelite. He knew it from scriptures. If you study the Old Testament, there are two words in Hebrew that come up consistently for the language of work, and the way we translate them in English is create, to make, right? We hear that in Genesis, God made, and God is making. He made you and I. And the other is that humans, Adam included, toil. We labor, like a woman who goes into labor, like Mary and every other mother out there. That's how we translate those words. And in much of the world, you will find that we make a distinction between those two in a way that's really unhealthy. We think high of one and low of the other. And Christianity certainly had its challenges with that. But in the Old Testament, they're woven together. Adam's labor is a response to God's gift of his existence. He was made for working. He wasn't made necessarily to suffer in work, but he was made for working. He was made to be like God in that way. He was given the same gift. Go make, go fix, go feed, go serve others. The New Testament takes those two themes really well, except of course they're tied, obviously, to Joseph's boy, the Son of God, Jesus Christ. Our work as Christians is tied intimately to the work of Jesus Christ. All of it. All of it. Certainly if it's done right, it lends itself into two directions, two different understandings of the same thing. The redemption brought by Jesus Christ, in other words, we're all part of serving humankind with the intent and knowing full well that we've been redeemed in grace. We've been given the gift of baptism and promise of eternal life. So a response in joy. And the second, that the end of the world is coming. If not in a big way, and I'm sure in the midst of a pandemic, people think about, there's another one. Sorry, you missed them. They're chasing it, that's a good sign. The other is that the work of salvation is real, because the end of time is coming. Either for you, for me, or for all of us. What we often called eschatology. In the life of the church, the idea of work has matured throughout the centuries. There are a lot of people in the world, and it goes back to that earlier saying, a good day at work isn't as good as a bad day fishing. That somehow work is a worldly endeavor and that our heads and hearts are meant for something else. But that wasn't the case for the Benedictines. Their saying, translated, means through work and prayer. The goal of the Christian life is holiness. It's that simple. It involves both of those things. We work principally so that in idleness, we don't find ourselves getting in trouble. But it's through the business of work and the joy of finding work that we discover the creativity of God and elsewhere. In the modern era, where life changed, at least in the West, industrialization changed the very nature of how we work. Many popes, bishops, and theologians have reflected upon what that is, what that means. It includes themes like justice and just wages, safe working conditions, the role of the worker. Pope John Paul put it together spectacularly in what he called the subjective and the objective end of work. Because the subjective end of work is that I work because I'm a creation of God. It's part of who I am. That's where we start our conversation about work and our life as St. Joseph. Who he was when we say St. Joseph the worker. The objective end, as important as that is for the work of others, isn't the reason we go to work. We can lose sight of the fact that we're doing this for more than just making money and paying bills and so on. That's where we get bitter and twisted. We miss the point. And I don't think Joseph ever made that mistake. I doubt it sincerely. When we think about it all together though, we finish it all off and put all together, the Old Testament, New Testament, the life of the church, and modern teaching. There are really sort of four themes. All of them bear their mark as a reflection of St. Joseph the worker. The first theme you discover in St. Joseph the worker, and it's a brilliant one, is that none of us as created are in fact creators. We don't make anything. Science and industry we discover. We take from what is and make something new out of it, but we're still not making what is. In other words, we're not God. But Joseph is the earthly father of Jesus Christ. And he's got nothing to do with his creation. Joseph is not Jesus' creator. And as a worker, none of us are creators. We're all working within creation. We're part of the created order of things. We're part of the universe. We participate in it as human beings. A spectacular way of understanding is that we don't do it purely out of necessity or out of some instinct. We do it out of freedom. It's a choice. I want to do this, I don't want to do that. That lends to the second element of work when we reflect on St. Joseph the worker. It's a vocation. That's a Latin word for work. Often we think of vocation as a religious thing, but vocatio literally means to work. It's that simple. But it works with an end in mind. And that end for the Christian is always the betterment of humankind and the salvation of souls. In other words, we participate within the vocation of Jesus Christ, the redemptive work of Jesus Christ. That's what grace is. We're not catching fish for our sake. We're catching fish as evangelists for his sake and for their sake. That leads to the third part of this, is that all work, religious and otherwise, is intended for the salvation of souls. It serves others. And our perspective on that changes our attitude towards work. The end is different than simply making money and paying the bills and so on. We go to work, like Joseph did, to provide for our families, to provide for our communities, to bring our talents and our treasures to build the world a better place. It's that simple. It's not a notion that's entirely stuck in this world. It always looks up to heaven. And that's the final point. And we can't lose sight of this, is that all work involves suffering. Jesus' work included the cross. And until my suffering gets anywhere close to that, I don't have much to complain about. But we can't escape the reality that work does involve suffering. That's a complicated notion that involves a lot of complicated things. But to be certain, Joseph suffered as the father of Jesus Christ, as a dad of Jesus Christ. That's a better way to put it. And the husband to Mary, he knew what suffering was. He worked with his hands as a laborer. He sweated by his brow, just like the rest of us. And there are problems, certainly in unjust suffering, but therein lies the problem of sin, selfishness and greed, that robs us of the most beautiful part of work if we lose our perspective of it. That it's until we understand the very nature of our humanity and the dignity we offer others, that's something we have to live with. Because it's about more than just a just wage. It's about just relationships with those we work for, those we serve. It's complicated. And we can't escape the reality on earth that we live within the complexity of what sin is. It's that simple. No matter what we do, we're a part of it. We contribute to it, and we suffer because of it. And that's what it means to join ourselves to Christ. The last thought I have on that as a Christian, part of the reason I'll never ever say a bad day fishing is better than a good day at work is that I also know what it means to lose a job I loved. And not because I did anything wrong, because that's just the way it was. I have the privilege of work in my life. It's an important part of who I am. Like St. Paul writes in Ephesians 2, we're not meant to sit around idle, act like busybodies. We're meant to work, to produce, to participate in the economy of salvation and the economy of this world. Amen.